Oh, wow. I am so excited to have this opportunity to have Tim Feldman on the podcast today. Tim, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey Todd, I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me come in here today. I think it's second time, isn't it?
It's the second time, I wanted to make sure I had the right date. The last time we did this, you were episode number 17, and it was on July 10th of 2020, 3 years
Ooh,
ago. And
oh,
can you
I thought I
can
was
you
gonna come back every week. That's why I said yes.
I know, right? I mean, remember July of 2020? What does that bring up for you, just remembering 3 years ago? Like,
Um,
wasn't that crazy or what?
that was just insane, man.
It
Like
was-
like I was washing the paper shopping bags that came from Instacart. I was like washing them with soap. It's like what the
you you
heck?
you you were you went that far with it, didn't you?
Yeah, man, I was like, the Kinos are laughing at me. I went on Amazon and I bought like two sets of hazmat suits and like glasses and stuff like that because I saw this video of someone from China that was sick and her husband was taking care of her. And I was like, oh, maybe we need this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then we know we got the vaccination, and that for me personal just changed it around from being like some fear, like a fair bit of fear, to okay, now I might get a heavy flow.
yeah.
So
And how
change.
many times have you had COVID now in total?
One, I think,
One.
after being vaccinated,
Yeah,
and very lightly, so
yeah, yeah.
no problem. And you?
Twice since having getting vaccinated. Yeah. So, yeah, we made it. We survived.
We made it through.
And we're still here and we're still kicking. And I'm
Mhm.
so excited to have this chance to have you speak. It's funny because you're going to be coming and teaching Ashtanga Yoga workshops here at Native Yoga Center on October 28th and 29th. And I'm
Yeah.
really thrilled to have you come back. I feel so lucky to have had a chance to meet you around about 17 or so years ago and start practicing with you and Kino back then when you guys first opened up Miami Life Center down on South Beach. And to have you come back again feels like to have an old friend come back. It's so exciting. I remember how nervous I was the first time I hosted you. I was like, oh man, I'm having Tim come in. And then so when I was telling a lot of the students, I said, okay, you guys, I'm so excited. Tim Feldman's coming. And some of them said, wait, is that your teacher from California? And I said, no, that's Big Tim. This is
Yeah.
Little Tim. And I had to kind of differentiate. So you're kind of riding off of the coattails of Big Tim. Do you feel like that's an easy coattail to ride? I mean, does that feel a little pressure that everyone thinks that you're Big Tim now coming to visit Native Yoga Center?
Well, I think both of you is are holding Big Tim in our hearts like someone very truly like a gem.
Yeah,
And so many people are, right? Unfortunately, we don't get to practice with Tim anymore, with Big Tim anymore. He's now a hermit, somewhat out in South California. So we don't get to see him no more,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah,
But I've learned a lot from him, no doubt about it.
yeah. I know you had so many great sessions with him down at Miami Life Center, coming and visiting and teaching there. Those were some pretty exciting events.
Yeah, and you also had him come up to you a couple of times, right?
We did. We were able to like pick him up from Miami and bring him up here type of thing and utilize the fact that he was over in this neck of the
Yeah.
woods.
Yeah.
That's cool, Tim. Well, man, I have so many questions for you. I don't want to assume that everybody listening already knows who you are. So there's a chance that somebody listening has never gotten a chance to meet you. So I'm going to ask you a couple of basic questions first, just so they can get some of the basics, the understanding, the foundation. Where were you born, Tim?
I was born in Denmark, in Europe, north of Europe, Copenhagen, just outside Copenhagen in a suburb called Rødovre. I'm from Rødovre, Copenhagen, Denmark. But I've been here in Miami for about 16, 17 years.
And your first language you learned obviously is
Danish.
Danish. And then what
Very
was the next language that you learned?
think that was English.
Yeah. And
When I went to school back in the days, we started in fifth grade learning English. In seventh grade, we learned to speak German, and then we French was optional, and I chose not to learn that.
yeah, very cool. And then when you were a student, let's not go past high school. What
Mhm.
type of activities were you most enthralled with?
Well, when I was about 5, 6 years old, my parents they bought a house at the coast of Denmark, and my mom insisted that me and my brother we learned to swim. So she put us in swimming classes from I was around, I think, 6 years old, and I really liked it. So I picked it up and started to be a competitive swimmer from I think the year after or something, and
Nice.
I did that for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. So you really kind of pushed it on the swimming front.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah. My friends was like, why are you not coming and playing some social ball sports with us? Why are you
Yeah.
lying there in the
Yeah.
pool with head in the water for like hours a day? It was like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, but I kind of like it.
That's cool. And where did you go to, did you do any higher education studies post high school?
Yes, I went to the university in Amsterdam, actually, in Holland. I went to the art school. It's one of the universities in Europe.
Yeah.
And I took a 4-year bachelor in dance and choreography.
Nice.
At that time, there was no school in Denmark for contemporary dance, only for classical dance. So I went there to Amsterdam to to do that.
So when you were swimming, then I'm guessing what at some point you took a dance class before you enrolled in this 4-year college program in dance, or was it something that like I might as well become a dancer and go to school and become a dancer? How did that play out?
It's a good question, man. It's like I always liked, on a Friday night, I love to go disco dancing, so I thought that was just super fun to just dance in clubs. And then around 16, I think I started to take some physical theater classes and workshops around, and pretty quickly realized that I preferred to do the physical part of it and not the theater part of it. And that led me into starting to take more dance classes. I started my first dance class was something called Contact Improv, which is a partner um, type of moving together, improvised. And that very quickly led me into more technical dancing. And that's when I decided to go to school.
Very cool. Where or when did yoga first come into your sphere?
So lo and behold, when I was a young dancer, I went to New York to try my luck. And when I was there in the first month or two, a friend of mine invited me to teach and participate in a festival in Venezuela, in Caracas. David Zambrano, he had a festival there. And I went down there and I had a big accident. Some friends took me into the mountains and I didn't know what I was doing, but I had lots of confidence. So I slid over a ridge and fell down these rocks for like 6, 7 stories. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy. And didn't die of some reason. And it broke a lot of bones and scratched up my body a lot. And um, went through a couple of surgeries. My knees to this day are very kind of fragile. I had to be very careful when I had to make sure that I strengthen them and stuff like this all the time. Um, and so 2 years after I was rehabbing for recuperating for about 2 years, I moved back to New York and I took up performing again. And a friend of mine took me to the Jiva Mukti yoga center on Second Avenue, and my body just loved it. And
Yeah,
I started to exchange my daily morning routine. I used to go to a dance class every day before rehearsal. So instead of doing that, I would go to Jiva Mukti and take what was called the open class, which was very Ashtanga based. And I did that for about 5 years. Meanwhile, I had moved back to Denmark, so I was continuing my Jiva Mukti yoga. And then I came by Lino Mele in Europe, and he was teaching a workshop in Ashtanga Yoga there. And I liked it better, and I continued with Ashtanga Yoga. So that was 1999, and I've been doing it since.
very cool. 1999. we're at 2023, 24 years. Is my math correct? It's got to be something like that. 24 years of Ashtanga Yoga,
God.
maybe a year or two before that. So, do you feel like you're at the veteran stage?
Well, certainly people look at me as if I am. I don't know if I'm a veteran. I'm 57,
Uh-huh.
and you know, my 57-year-old body is very different than my 47 and my 37.
Mm,
Someone just sent me a photo from Mysore, India, in one of my first trips practicing there with Patap Joyce. I think from 2004 or something like that. And I was like, damn, look at me. I look like I can do yoga.
right. Isn't it?
So,
It's almost like a different person. Who is that?
yeah,
Who is that
yes,
person? Looking all
exactly.
skinny and,
Yeah,
see all the intercostals and maybe even
suntan,
some serratus anterior
short,
bulging out and
all that. Yes. Now it's other stuff that's bulging, right? So,
other
but
stuff is bulging.
stuff like my belly and my lower back discs and things like that.
Yes, yes. And a couple of other just housekeeping questions. When did you meet Kino? What year was that?
So Kim and I, we met early 2000, I think 2002, in also in India, where I was practicing with Lino Mile, and I'd been doing that for some years at that time, and
Yeah,
she came down to Kerala, where he was teaching every and still is to this day every winter, and we met there, and that was the beginning of a 20-year relationship.
nice. That's cool. And then moving forward a little bit, you had Miami Life Center on South Beach for a good 14 or so years before, maybe longer, 15 years before now you guys are in Wynwood, Miami, I believe, with what, the Miami Yoga Garage?
Yeah, so Miami
Yeah.
Life Center, we opened 2006 on South Beach,
Yeah.
and we closed that down 2000 to 2022. And during COVID, we built a new space in Wynwood that we call Miami Yoga Garage. And Miami Yoga Garage is the location where Miami Life Center is now doing its work from. And also Omstar's Kino's Omstar's online platform is also in there.
Nice.
It's
Awesome,
great.
Tim. That's amazing. That's amazing. I know it's so fun following your guys' trajectory. And I feel like that gets us kind of caught up. I hope everyone listening, if they've never met you before, that gives like a good brief, very brief overview. Um, and now on that note, one thing I've noticed, like, well, you've been doing this for years, and I watch your tour schedule, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're traveling the world globally all the time. Like every weekend, I see you're going to Europe, and then you hit multiple countries in Europe, and then you're here in the States, and you're hitting multiple cities in the States, and then you're back in India, and just traveling. Can you just tell me a little bit about what that experience is like? And because you've been at it for so many years, I'd really love to hear like the ups and the downs, like the pluses and the minuses, or maybe it's all just bliss the whole way through. But I
You know, since I was about 17, 16, 17, 18, I think I've been a nomad. Uh, so even before I came into yoga, I was just living everywhere, nowhere, traveling. Before I went to school in Holland, I traveled around Europe for a little bit, had some vacations, and loved to hitchhike. It was possible in those days, so I did a lot of that. And didn't have any money for airplane tickets. If I was lucky, I could take a bus, but I thought buses were boring, so I preferred to hitchhike. And I thought that was like it was somewhat enriching in experiences and things like that. And then when I became a dancer, like I went to school in Holland, and I danced with a company in Sydney and in New York and also in Denmark and in Paris and different places. And then when I started to do my own work, by now my network was more international than national, and my interest in dance was based more in dance that was happening other places than Denmark. So I would bring in collaborative partners to Denmark, and we would make work with them. Then we would travel around the world and show them this work. That was super fun. So even before yoga, I was already on that kind of on the road type track.
Got it.
So then I moved to Miami, and I started to teach every morning at 6 a.m. down at 6th Street. And people came, and sometimes, Miami is such a transitory place. So people will come to workshop from different places because they were on vacation also. And then by that, they said, hey, would you want to come? I have a yoga studio here. Would you want to come up there? And then I started to do that. And then at some moment, I let go of the daily practice, long story short, and not daily practice, daily teaching at Miami Yoga, at Miami Life Center. And I started to teach workshops instead. And I've been doing that since, and I think that's since, what is that? 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. It's, I think I'm a little bit of a restless soul. So, and I think that I think I'm learning these years that I'm perhaps more introverted than I thought I was when I was younger. I think it's a common thing, right? And there's something about traveling around by myself, which is almost like a little bit monkhood,
Yeah.
and just making wherever I am my home for the time I'm there, and connecting with whoever is in front of me with whatever I got
Yeah.
in that moment,
Nice.
which I enjoy.
Yeah.
And then, I see a lot of new faces, but I also see a lot of old faces because luckily people come back.
Yeah.
So I feel, it's like when we were taking class with Big Tim, we would go as often as we could, a couple times a year, and see Tim here or in California, something like that. So in the same way, people are coming to the workshops, and like you and I, we know each other, and I get back to some dear old friends like you, teaching every now and then. So I'm on the road mostly Friday to Sunday, and then I'm home Monday through Friday morning. And that
Nice.
has its own rhythm, I
Yeah. Yeah.
travel. And then Mondays is my day off. I'm tired. And
Yeah.
then Tuesday is kind of home time
Yeah.
and so forth. So
Very
I,
cool.
I like it.
It's amazing, Tim. You're making it sound really easy.
Mm,
I mean, yeah, I think you make it sound easy. I feel like there was a time when I watched what you were doing and I thought, that looks amazing. That looks really fun. I want
mm.
to try to do that.
Yeah.
It's it's not as easy as you're making it sound.
Oh, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, how was it hard?
What's that?
Yeah, in which way? What did you find it difficult?
Good question. I guess you need to have a certain amount of fame to
Mm,
have enough people
mm,
want to actually show up for
mm.
you when you arrive somewhere. Do you agree?
Fame is such a funny word, isn't it? If you ask me if I have fame, I am not sure if I have fame. My wife, I think, is a bit of a celebrity in the yoga world.
Uh-huh.
I think perhaps there is some kind of reputation
Okay.
that I have, what's that called, cultivated
Yeah.
over the years. Um, and often it goes like, I come up to your space and you know me, but your students perhaps doesn't know me.
Right.
And then you say, hey, this is not Big Tim, but it's Little Tim. And he's pretty fun, you know. I think you should come. So, and in that way, it like
Yes.
evolves and it evolves
Yes.
more and
Yes.
more.
Yeah.
So I think I need not be very famous. I just need to
Yeah.
home in on my skill, make sure that my knowledge is sharp, perhaps, you know, and
Yep.
well founded.
Yep.
And I would say also approachable, and willing to teach in a manner where there's space for whoever shows up, and there's space for exchange of views. Like, so I drank the Kool-Aid. I think this yoga is pretty dang awesome. You know, I think it works. You know, like classic Raja yoga, I think it works. Patanjali yoga, I'm inspired by that. And that is my secret agenda. That is to go out and share that, and hopefully make everyone get a feeling for, if you put in the work, how it can create a momentary and lasting goodness
Yeah.
for us.
Yes. Good answer, Tim. I was thinking today when I was trying to formulate what to converse with you about. I guess I have this feeling that one of the things I'm most grateful to for yoga practice is consistency, doing something daily over a
Mm.
long period of time. And I'm curious, has your faith or consistency wavered much lately? Or do you feel like once you seep long enough in something and do something consistently long enough that the questioning is less, the surrender and sticking to it seems easier? What are your thoughts regarding this?
I don't think the questioning is less, but I think that the questioning changes
Mm.
and it becomes more subtle. So, for instance, my questioning rarely goes to if yoga is good for me and if this is gonna work, or if I should change this some part of the system, should change my practice or things like that. My question doesn't go there. If I have a pain in my knee, if I should practice or not, is that kind of questioning doesn't come up. I have um, full conviction that me getting on my mat is always good for me. There's many ways to get on the mat. That's a whole other subject, right? But so I think the question is not so much that. I think the questions that comes up is more the natural organic development of like aging, for instance, that like, okay, so I used to do this movement with ease and now I can still do it, but it's more difficult. And should I do it every day? That is more a question. And how do I take this thing that I know and mold it into what feels healthy and profound, and a good vehicle for my personal growth as a human being? How do I mold this according to the age that I have and my body's capacity right now?
Yeah.
That is something, you know, and right now, you know, I'm trying to figure out why am I not doing that and that and that, which I used to do every day. I can't quite figure it out. It's like, am I lazy? Am I listening to my body's subtle signals? Um, am I getting old? Did I fall off and I should go just get back on? Um, you know, things like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Good insight. Yeah.
And it's a little bit difficult sometimes because most of the people I'm around are 10 years younger than me.
They all want you to demonstrate.
I cannot
Can
do
you
that
just show
now.
us, Tim? Can you just show us how to
More
grab our
time.
ankles in the back bend?
but it's also then it's like, like to some degree, to a large degree, I feel we are the product of the culture that we are around, the people that we around, the culture that we around. That influences so much. So when I'm around with people that are so much younger than me, it's like it's a mirror to
Yeah.
some degree. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I have to look, but so I'm looking for these days. It's very interesting. I'm looking to some of my old practice buddies who is my age,
Mhm.
and I'm like, but I have to kind of seek them out, right? And I have to try to figure out what the heck are they doing these days. And I think, like, comparatively to that, I think I'm just, no, you're on it, Tim. But so that's interesting. Like, and there's so many ways to go. Like, I was just up in Finland and seeing my old friend Frank Kappas, who was ahead of me when I
Oh,
started
oh, that's so
like,
cool. I just reached out to Frank, and he was open to being a guest on the podcast. When you said Finland, I thought, oh, I wonder if it's going to be Frank, and you just threw his name out there. That's so cool. All right.
Frank Kappas. You are going to love him. He is one of my favorite people on this planet.
I
He's
had
amazing.
someone recently, Lotta Sebsta. Do you know Lotta Sebsta? She's from Sweden. And
Yes.
and I asked Lotta, I said, who else should I ask? And she says, oh, you got to talk to Frank. He's such a nice guy. He's so funny. She
He's
spoke so highly of him. That's so cool, Tim. I can't wait to meet him. Yay.
oh,
But I don't want to
he's
interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you. Yeah.
crazy. So he's he has 3 kids and a house and a job and stuff. He's teaching yoga, and he does primary series every day, and he does it like other people brush their teeth, like, and he just does that every day, and he's able to do that kind of consistency.
Yeah.
I'm way more complicated mind. I need to like feel my shoulder joints and and stuff like that. So I don't know. Did I answer your question, or did I
Yeah.
just
You did. No, no. I mean, you did answer my question because I wanted to just find out, like, in your mind, like what type of questions float around, and I think that's a good answer.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
So like I'm thinking about it a little bit in these terms. So when I started practicing, I started to try to figure out what I was supposed to do, like which asana and stuff, and where does this arm go? And as soon as I figured out what, I had to figure out how. So it's like, how do I get my arm out of that's really weird place? I've never had that before. So so the what and how was very intricately tied together. And then I think I practiced like that for maybe 10 years. And then I started to ask, why am I doing this again? Why so much? And I think these days, I think that led me into philosophy, right? That led me into Patanjali, and that led me into the Gita, and that led me into all these obscure texts like this one, which is an amazing text.
Keep it up there for a minute. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, Tim's holding his, or those of you who are listening that aren't watching on YouTube, the Vedanta Sada.
Vedanta Sara. So this is so I started to seek out some of the amazing capacities that is in South India and Mysore. They have this college, the Sanskrit college, and out of that college come some of the world's finest Sanskrit scholars and traditional Indian professors, teachers, thinkers. And so this is a book that my teacher recommended. So I go there, and he taught me Patanjali, and then he taught me Sankhya, and then he started to move me into Vedanta and all these kind of supported texts that goes in and supports the understanding of what it is Patanjali is talking about. So anyway, so I went into that because I needed some fuel for practicing, I think. And I think I started to get deeper into it, more subtle, and I felt it all worked, but I didn't know how, and I was interested in how. I think I have a type of analytical mind that is, somehow to have a faithful mind that's like, yeah, kind of mind. I don't have one of those. I'm like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
how? Yeah, tell me when to know.
Yeah. Yes.
So that, and then, so I went from what and how to why. And I think this day I'm at that stage where I'm asking who's asking.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? who is asking? What part of me is asking? You know, is it the ego? Is it the intellectual entertainment part that is asking these questions just to fill my head up with something which removes the potential of boredom and loneliness and pain? Or am I genuinely benefiting from, or is there some part of me deeper than that that is genuinely benefiting from the activities that I load my day with? Or could I as well just have gone to the movies all day long?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good
Oh,
question. It's
yeah,
a good
and
question.
I'm trying to, get a little hold on some of those schizophrenic,
Oh,
uh,
yeah. That's a
but
great question. That's a funny one, isn't it? When you start to look at yourself and think, I put so much importance on these specific routines that I repeat each day, not just yoga, but taking a nap at this time of the day, reading a book at this time of the day, or I need to take my 3 mile walk today. I need to, and
all
it's
our
like,
needs.
and you're kind of putting that like, I've got to do this because I got to check it off the list because these activities are what are keeping me fed and fueled and healthy and happy. And then starting to analyze that a little and going, do I really, if I just laid down horizontal in bed all day long, but I think the answer kind of it almost answers itself because then I think like, well, how do I feel when I do that? Like if I actually lay in bed all day long and do none of those routines, it creates some sort of energetic feeling of like, I feel lazy, I feel lame, I feel like I'm not achieving anything. And but it's an interesting question,
How
isn't it? Because
the
like,
other
why
people
is it
around gonna look at me?
why why is achievement so important? Like why do we think achievement is so just because it feels good? What how would you answer that question, Tim? Why do you think achievement is important?
I think it has to do with our self-worth, right? And I think in the Western world, if we don't, and also in Asia, perhaps even more so, if there is not an achievement, we are valueless almost. And I think, but coming from north of Europe, which is this rich little butthole enclave of liberal values, of humanistic values, um,
Heard
you
that.
are allowed to be before you do, to a much further degree than I experience in America.
Wait,
Like you,
can you repeat that? You're allowed to be before you do?
you're allowed to just be
Allowed to just be.
before you are requested to do
Mm,
something like that.
that is an
And I
interesting
feel,
flip. Yeah.
and I think it's because like there's been peace for about 1,000 years of them,
Mm,
uh, plus minus, but it's 1,000 years ago since we were Vikings. So, and I think there's some values that just came out of that. I don't know. I would like to think that we just got tired of fighting
yeah.
as a people, as a culture.
Yeah.
Um, and also there's so much financial support in the system, so you can just
Mm,
down, where here in America, if you're not five step ahead of your material circle, you might end up under a bridge tomorrow.
mm,
And that's scary, right?
good point.
So we gotta be doing much more here in America, but I think I naturally am more doing than many people in Northern Europe, and maybe that's why I'm over here. So
Wow. That's a lot of insight, Tim. That's really interesting. I
yeah.
was wondering why you were here. I thought,
Yeah,
why does he
and
want to try to keep up with the Miami pace? I mean,
yeah.
you don't get a chance to take a breath around here. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
That's awesome, Tim.
yeah. I
Um,
can't remember what I think I got sidetracked. Like, what was your question again?
no,
It was
no,
a
no, no.
super.
We're right on track. No,
Okay.
I'll make sure you stay on cue. If you get,
Yeah, please.
it's funny that the first thing that popped in my head, I saw a picture of you, and which, by the way, I like. Correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, Me asking you in the past, Tim, what do you think about social media? And you're like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to put a whole bunch of time into it. And then lately, I don't know, I really like everything you're posting. I feel like you've found some type of little groove where you're getting a good, honest, like, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what, and it's just, and I love reading your posts because they're written the way that you talk, which is like this really cool combination of like
Weird
English and
baby.
a funky, just kind of like, it's like totally unique, and so you write the way you talk. So when I'm reading it, I hear your voice in my head saying it, like as if it's you saying, and I don't know, it just seems like just good stuff you're putting out there these days. And so with that being said, I guess uh
You
oh
man.
man, no, I lost my track. I had a good point to make.
Something with Instagram, something with social media,
So
or?
how are you feeling about what you're posting these days? Is it feeling natural to you? Or are you having to have to work really hard at what you're doing right now with that?
Oh, no. So I think social media is has like two sides. Some of it is a little bit fun, and some of it is making sure that I keep up with the Joneses. Like some that it's a professional platform, and that fame thing that you asked about earlier. That I gotta make sure that my face is like, hello, I'm still here. That's gotta be there. It's a little less promotional value to that platform. But um, I'm just not very good in keeping a professional attitude to that Instagram. Like I've had so many people, amongst others, my really knowledgeable and awesome wife that says, here is how you should grow your Instagram. And then she gives me these great ideas and she shows me how I'm not doing it. And she says, it's a mess, Tim. and, and I say, and I try, but it's not really working for me because I'm not interested enough in having a smooth kind of on point profile there. I would need to like take an asana shot of myself a day and write every day. And that's just like days that nothing comes out of me.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
nothing happens in my head, or what happens in my head is not formulated into thoughts.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
and then
great. I,
Kino's great. Like sometimes she calls me and she texts me and she says, asana photo. You know, so I found some tree to stand on my head on or something, like a rock bench or something. So she helps me like remind me that it's also a professional platform.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then when I have something, little bit something to say, I'll just try to um, formulate it and just put it there because
yeah.
I thought. So I'm very happy, because I don't really have an idea if it's good or bad. So I'm very happy to hear because I think you're great,
Well,
and I trust your word. So if you like to read it, I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, hitting some spot.
yeah. I think stick with what you got going. The one I really enjoyed the other day was you were in Greece and you were floating in the water, and there's a couple of really beautiful. I mean, what I do and why I love following you on there is because I mean I'm like, man, now he's in Greece. Look at those photos, and then you're like, oh, now I'm in Italy, and I'm like, holy cow, looks amazing. So like you're visiting all these incredible places, and so I get to see the scenery. But you were in the water, and you were doing this really gentle kind of like maybe touching my toes toward my head, but it wasn't like your toes were anywhere near your head. But you're just in this nice floating in the water back bend, and you said something to the effect of like, "This is about the extent of my back bending these days." And I was like, "Right on, Tim. That's how I'm feeling." Let me just
Yeah.
float in the water and just like, and that kind of makes me think like, couldn't that be just an Ashtanga yoga practice for the day, just to float in the water and move around a little bit? Or do you feel at odds with letting that be an Ashtanga practice? Like, how do you draw that line of, I am an Ashtanga yoga practitioner and today I'm just going to float?
Well, I think that if we like Ashtanga Yoga, we have to also like try to remember what Ashtanga are we talking about. We're talking about Pattabhijoy's 6 series of kick-ass asana. Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about Patanjali's jewel from the
Great
Yoga
point.
Sutras?
Great point.
And so, and I think that my personal interest is Patanjali's Ashtanga jewel, the 8 limbs of Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama Pratyahara Tarana Dhyana Samadhi. That is the basis of what Pattabhijoy was doing, and that when we call it Ashtanga today, it's because Norman Allen asked, "What kind of yoga is this?" And Pattabhijoy's answer was, "Huh? Yeah, Ashtanga yoga, as in yoga, classic yoga, Raja yoga." And then we have adopted that name somewhat. So if as a sadhaka, as a spiritual practitioner, to float around in the water is not enough. I wish it was, man, but there's, if I may just like quote like one of our favorite small sutras here, Stira Sukha Masanam. Floating around in water is sukha, and that is half of it, and it's good and it must be there. And if we go in and practice to punish ourselves and without any sense of enjoyment, besides in I'm doing what my father told me to do, but not like personal, I'm here, I'm doing it type of connection to self, then the half is lost. There must be a delight in what we're doing. But having said that, stira comes before sukha. And when I was there, like on that beautiful little cove in Greece, lying in the water there, I just bent my knees, and there was not much stira in that. So stira is there to make us learn. Stira is there to say, come to this place, provoke, challenge yourself in a way that makes you begin to experience how you think and the emotions that comes along with them, and the deeper kind of psychological matrix that we are made of. And that very rarely comes when we're having just an awesome time. It's like we have an awesome time with just, one more beer and a pop song. And when we are challenging ourselves a little bit, we also, in a positive manner, forcing ourselves, provoking ourselves to think thoughts we otherwise would not have done. And I think that the juxtaposition of these two is what makes the yoga practice, or at least that's what Patanjali says. So you can hear, again, I said earlier I drank the Kool-Aid. I think that it is profound that needs to be there. So whereas I love to lie at the edge of the water in Greece, I can't call it yoga. Yeah,
I understand.
I
understand.
have to. Yoga is a little more difficult than that.
Yes,
It's a little more complex than that.
that's a good point, Tim. That's so interesting. I know I remember coming across the philosophy from a Tibetan Buddhist teaching that takes this sort of approach of you already are samadhi. Samadhi is already, so this trying to do yoga is not necessarily like you're already there. So I often weigh these two concepts, like what you're saying. And I see 100% what you're saying when you're just in this like one more beer and pop song mode. It's not necessarily addressing the challenge of like reality of humanity, of existence.
Yes, and one more beer in a pop song is not going to lead us to a deeper insight.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might lead us to and insight about how we want to live our life, of how much we want to do that, and what we miss out on when we do that a lot. But um, there are more subtle ways of living than that gives us more opportunity. But I think what you're saying is really wonderful there. Like the state of samadhi, the state of enlightenment, the state, that like hallelujah thing that is being promised somewhat to us in both Buddhism and in yoga in slightly different ways and results. I think I connect with that. I feel that. I feel that that state is my true identity, and my job is to find vehicles, paths back to that, and not fuck it up so much
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
How about you? Would you say that you sit with that as a truth to you, or do you feel that you're boxing with that, or?
Yeah, good point, Tim. I mean, I think that the concept that I'm already in a state of enlightenment, so there's no thing to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
sounds really good. But if I check in with how I actually feel,
Mm-hmm.
often there's turmoil and or this feeling that I have to achieve something, I need to keep going. So I guess maybe just utilizing that as a meditative point, like, okay, I'm going to sit and meditate and just focus on everything that I need is already here. So I do believe it's a good meditative point, but I also acknowledge that I often feel a struggle, so to speak, in which case I see a little more to the side of what you're saying with the yoga element, sthira sukham, some
Mm.
ease, some challenge, some ease, some challenge, and then finding some balance there. So yeah, I definitely think there's the potential for both to kind of be existing with each other at the same time. Like I can slip a little over into the I'm just going to be in Greece and just kind of feel my body do a gentle bend, and this is it. This is
Yeah.
it. This is as far as I need to go. I found it. And when I'm struggling, okay, let me get a routine going. Usually for me, when I'm in a really deep struggle, it involves a little bit of depression. It involves a little bit of like feeling down and out. And that's where I find getting on my yoga mat is so important to just get me out of my head and get me moving again and breathing and just having something that's solid and kind of already figured out. Today I was thinking a little bit about like the practice. It's not
May I just insert there?
please, please.
So I think like all that stuff you're talking about for me there, that is not roses. And I do it too. It's not like you're neurotic. It's not what I mean, right? But like that is like neurosis. That is what Patanjali call Apinivesha, and all that stuff that comes from there. And that is all the self-perpetuated, culturally instigated, personally instigated unfortunate that we have like so sticky
Mm,
to get rid of,
yeah,
that we are
yeah,
all under. And it's like, imagine that was not there. Then what would be there? That would be a state where I'm pretty fucking happy. I'm enjoying myself. I'm easy on myself. And therefore I'm easy on other people. And I'm gonna go down to the donut shop, and whether it's closed or open, I'm just gonna be chill with that, and it's at that state, that I think that is there, but it's all my stuff on top that is,
yeah.
but fortunately, all those stuff on top is like what Patanjali he calls materials snuff. It's possible to get rid of, but
Mm,
it's not easy.
mm,
It's like
yeah,
weeding,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
And I think that's perhaps what I mean when I say I buy into the idea 100% that enlightenment is there, or that state of niceness, it is there. It's my job to get back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good point.
anyway, you were just saying in your practice today.
Oh yeah, that the practice is like it's not an entity. It's not like the practice isn't a person. It's really doesn't have form. It doesn't have a shape. It just is this combination of movements with the body and the breath. And yet, but it feels like it's something. It feels like it's like an entity. Like like working with a new student today, first time coming in and starting at Sun Salutation A, right? And it's like, just, all right, let's get started on Sun Salutation A, Mysore style, inhale, arms up, exhale, fold. And then, and the amount of work and effort needed to actually memorize those 9 vinyasas, like and as a teacher, we've been doing it for however many umpteen years. And you kind of maybe let their mind go, how could this be so hard? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
because
only
for us,
9 little movements, but
yes.
it's challenging. It is hard. So, and
Also
that
that,
is,
that
yeah.
Trini and Ashtanga movement, that's
Uh-huh.
so difficult, right? That's
Yeah.
like,
3 and 8,
yeah.
right? To remember that movement. And
Mm.
yeah, that's such a classic one. And I guess I was just having this feeling that it's amazing to me how the yoga practice, and then I'll go a little further and say the Ashtanga yoga practice of Patabi Joyce and or that lineage, it just feels like it's an entity, even though if I try to put my finger on it, it doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Like, it's like, is Ashtanga yoga triangle pose? I mean, I guess it is. It's one part of the whole thing, but it's just one little piece of this whole thing. But if I come out of triangle, it's not even there. It's not, I don't know. I might be getting a little too far out there on this idea, but I was
You,
just having a
what do you
moment.
smoke, man? No, I'm joking. I
Nothing,
hear you.
nothing yet, nothing yet.
It's
But
like
yeah,
if you are doing your primary series and you skip uh, triangle pose, is it still Ashtanga yoga? Is that what you mean, kind of thing,
yeah,
or
yeah. Just trying to like, to me, it just feels like it has a framework and it's very solid and real. And then sometimes it feels to me like it's non-existent and I'm somehow doing something that just is non-existent. I don't know how to put it into words.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I understand you correctly, but
Mm.
what comes up for me is
Yeah.
like the form, right? It's like the body is a form, and this primary series is a form. So
Mhm.
we are, so that's a material thing. So it is an entity in that manner.
Mm.
But when we have done it enough, or on a good day, or from moment to moment, sometimes that form is just inst just instigates an experience which is not about that form but comes from that form. It's like, or like you can go to a really expensive restaurant or cheap restaurant, and then you can get this meal, and then you can momentarily, when you put it into your mouth, you're like, wow. And there's something opens us, something, I don't know, take a car ride,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not driving, and you sit in the passenger seat and you're like, look at all the cows out there. Something, I don't know.
I know, Tim. It's amazing. I mean, I love yoga. I had someone come in the other day and say, I said, Tim is coming. I'm so excited. I haven't seen you in a while. And I know you were here before when Tim came in the past. Guess what? He's coming again. The response was, oh, I think I'm going to have to really, I'd have to really, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'd have to get into shape for it. And I said, well, you and me both, because I'm a little nervous too, because I've been struggling through a few physical challenges. And I said, but when I see Tim, I'm gonna say, Tim, man, this is what I'm going through. I might need to have you be a little softer with me on some assists and that type of thing, just because I really just want to be careful, and I'm making some headway these days, and I just want to be really careful. And I told her he's gonna totally understand that, and he's gonna honor that, and you don't have to worry at all about that, you know. And so I just want to share that with you because I'm guessing you already know that because you feel the same thing when you go practice with your teacher. I'm sure you have that apprehension that comes up that goes, I know I can go in there thinking that I'm going to just be chill, but when I get around the energy of the whole group, I'm just going to stop being chill. I'm going to bust out Krandavasana because I know I will. It's just who I am. I'm going to do it. And so can you reassure us that those of us that haven't, you know, maybe since pre-COVID, we haven't been in an Ashtanga workshop where we know what that energy is like. I mean, it's just amazing energy. I love it. But can you assure us that you're going to be gentle with us?
Absolutely not. We're going to jump back from the beginning. We're going to do Supta Kurmasana into Kalasana, then do Dvipara, and then Karandavasana, and then we go home. And if you can't do it, there's something wrong with
I was
you.
only kidding myself and them then, right? I'm just like I'm just trying to get them to come, and I should break the news to them right away and just be like,
You
dude,
got it,
you get
man.
worked. You're gonna get worked when you walk in there.
And whether you can do this asana or not, Tim's going to put you in it. So
Yeah.
no, I feel so much with that student, and I wish I could say that I have progressed from that, but I haven't, because I was in Mysore seeing Sharat in my teacher Sharat in December, and I hadn't seen him for 4 years because of that thing that came around the world with
Yeah.
Conan, what was it called? COVID? Oh yeah,
COVID. Yeah.
COVID. Yes. So, and I was not in very good shape, and I walked into that room and I saw my old practice buddies, and I was like, I'm supposed to be good at this, and I'm not good at this at the moment. I'm really rusty. But it was all my process. Sharat was there. He was super happy to see me. It seemed like, and I've been coming for 20 years, and we know how it is when, like, it's like, oh, he's been coming for 20 years. He must like something about me or something. I don't know why he was happy to see me, right? And so it was on my trip about not feeling that I was where I wanted to be, but he would come and work me happily every day and joke with me and enjoy that I was down there struggling. So I totally get that student there, but I really don't care if she can do Kapotasana or not. My job is to be there and work with everyone where they are and find gold where we are. And if I may quote Richard Freeman, I love this quote. He says, "Blessed are the stiff." And I think what he means is that the ones who can do everything, they can also think about their shopping list for after while they're doing their practice. And that is not what we're supposed to do. But when we are a little bit in trouble, our mind gets challenged into focusing on the activity that we're involved in. And that happens easier when we are stiff, when we are not in shape, when we are having an injury, when all that. We actually have an easier entry into the idea that is the carrying principle of concentration, unifying our mental capacity and our intellect with our physical sensations. That that just comes easier when we are not enjoying it as much as we would like to. It's sad, isn't it?
At least we're laughing about the paradox, right?
Yeah, man.
If we can find comedy in the tragedy, if it's only tragedy,
No, that would be still.
that would
That would
be,
be nice.
yeah. So there's a little comedy, there's a little tragedy.
I can't remember who said it. Was it maybe, I can't remember, one of those Greek old timers. And then,
Plato, Socrates, uh,
yes,
Socrates. No, yeah.
I don't think it was him, but so he says, the human being is a comical tragedy or
Mm,
tragical comedy. I can't remember
tragical
which one it
comedy.
is.
Yeah,
I totally feel like that as a
yeah,
human being. I
yeah.
feel I am this comical tragedy of like walking on legs, every day, or the tragical comedies like my petty small obsessions that
Yeah.
so important for me, like you spoke about earlier, that I can't see out. It's just so comical and so sad at the same time. Like, yeah, God must be sitting up there going,
Uh,
I I gave him 2 arms and 2 legs and front teeth to eat carrots, and look what he's done with it, man.
right.
He has so much potential, and look what he's doing with it down there.
Comical and tragedy at the same time. Oh my gosh, Tim. Man, I'm so thankful. And I wanted to have this opportunity to chat with you again just to get people pumped up and excited for your return to Juneau. But obviously, some of you listening aren't going to maybe be able to fly to Juneau on the 28th of October. But Tim is everywhere. I mean, you get around Tim. So even if you're listening in Greece, or you're listening in Finland, or you're listening in India, or that we could go on and on, you're going to be there. He's
Yeah.
coming.
Also just outside Detroit
The-
soon.
the- They're gonna the saying's going to switch from all is coming to Tim is coming. Tim is coming. He's coming. He's on his way. He's on his way.
Practice, practice,
Tra-
practice.
Tragedy and comedy. It's on its way. All of it. But yes, thank you, Tim. I'm so happy. And how do we close this? What do we do to close this session? Do we
I think
sign off? Do you say more?
you
What
just
is
said
the
it. So
protocol?
Chubby Joyce said, practice, 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 all is coming. And in this case, it's Tim is coming, so you better practice, practice, practice.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
because
just
he'll go easy on you, not while you're practicing. Yeah, yeah. Oh my
no.
gosh. All right. Well, I'm so happy
Forward.
that you're only an hour and a half away. I don't have to fly. You don't have to fly. It's an easy journey. Are you going to ride your motorcycle up, or are you going to be a little safer and take four wheels?
I think I'll take 4 wheels.
Four
It's
wheels.
just
Cool. Cool.
for that morning journey there, so I'm not all, you know,
Yeah.
geared up
Yeah.
before I begin.
Smart.
So
Smart.
that
Yeah. I
I'm
had somebody who was driving up and back from Miami on their motorbike, through 2 days and 2 days in a row. And I was like, ooh, ooh,
that's
that takes some guts. Every time I drive from here, as soon as I hit Fort Lauderdale, right about 95, right about Fort Lauderdale, all of a sudden it's like, you're in Miami, baby. Like people are honking, people are swerving. It's like, it's a whole nother thing down in Miami driving these days.
yeah. I
Yeah, man.
think they actually say that stretch there, that Miami stretch of I-95,
Yeah.
is the most dangerous, most fatalities of all highways in Florida. Just that bit
I've
right
heard
there.
that. I've heard that. Yeah, it's a serious, like, you got to be on your game. You got to navigate.
Gotta be. I look so much forward to coming.
Yeah,
It's
Tim.
been such a pleasure to have this chat. I hope that we could have had this over coffee. I hope someone is gonna find it interesting. Maybe if they make a cup of coffee, then it could be more interesting. But
Yeah, maybe that will make us sound more interesting. And also Tim Tamara says to say hello, and we wish big love to you and Kino. Please send our regards, and we will see you soon.
that sounds great.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Todd,
Thank you.
for the chat. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tim.
Take care.